The Biden administration is set to release an intelligence report that concludes Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the brutal murder of Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. President Biden is expected to call the Crown Prince's 85-year-old father before the report is released. That's King Salman, to explain that he wants to recalibrate the U.S. relationship with the Saudis, maintaining ties despite the Khashoggi affair. The CIA concluded that Khashoggi had been brutally murdered at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul and his body dismembered by a Saudi hit squad working for the powerful Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the de facto leader of the country, whose king has been ailing for years. Congress passed a law in 2019 demanding that President Trump release that report. He never did. And he then bragged to Bob Woodward in the book Rage that he had helped get the Crown Prince off the hook, saying, "I saved his ass. I was able to get Congress to leave him alone. I was able to get them to stop." Joining me now, Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut, who's been a leader in the fight to get the full release of the report and to reorder the relationship with Saudi Arabia after this Khashoggi affair and because of other issues, human rights abuses against dissidents. Senator, welcome. Thank you very much. We understand, as we had reported and others had reported back in 2018, that the CIA has found with high confidence that he was behind this, if not even ordering it himself, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman. What is your reaction to the impact that this report's release and the accompanying policies, including some punitive policies against some members of that royal group?
Well, listen, there's just no way that Jamal Khashoggi's murder was carried out without either the knowledge or direction of Mohammed bin Salman. He was intimately involved in the pursuit of Saudi dissidents. Jamal Khashoggi was on a long list of these dissidents who lived all around the world that were pursued by Saudi agents, were attempted to be brought back to Saudi Arabia. Maybe this attempted extradition went badly wrong, but we have to remember the Saudis lied to us and the world about it for weeks. They claimed that they knew nothing about where Jamal Khashoggi was, when in fact they knew that he had been chopped up into pieces, dismembered, and his body disposed of. And so it's not just the fact that they were so brutal in the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, who was living in America at the time under American protection, but that they treated our relationship so casually that they lied to us about it for weeks until the evidence was simply so overwhelming that they had to tell the truth. And I think it's just a reminder of why we need to reset our relationship with Saudi Arabia and the Gulf, why we should be really careful about selling them weapons at the pace we have been selling over the past 10 years. These are dangerous individuals inside this regime with a murderous history, and this report, should its name MBS specifically, is going to be further confirmation of the caution we should take when entering into relations with the Saudis.
During the campaign, during a debate, a Democratic primary debate, I asked Joe Biden whether he would punish the Saudis, which Donald Trump had refused to do. He even refused to release the report after Congress mandated it in the defense authorization bill. And he said, yes, he would, that he would stop arms sales, that he would take other actions to hold them accountable. What should he do?
Well, I do believe that we need a complete reevaluation of our relationship with Saudi Arabia. And I think it does begin with a downsizing of our security partnership. Right now, we are selling the Saudis weapons that they are using to bomb and target civilians inside Yemen. I just don't believe it's in the U.S. security interest any longer to get in the middle of this series of proxy wars between the Saudis and the Iranians. The Iranian regime is an adversary of the United States, but by perpetuating these conflicts in places like Yemen or Syria, we're frankly just strengthening Iran's hand. The longer these conflicts go, the more influence they have in places like Yemen. So I hope that the Biden administration thinks really carefully about whether we're going to continue to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia at the pace we are today. It also has the effect of just spinning up an arms race in the region, which is bad for us and all of our partners there. So I think that that is one piece of the relationship that needs to be reevaluated.
Now, only 5 people are in jail because of this in Saudi Arabia. What about sanctions or visa restrictions on some other members of this royal group who report to MBS?
Well, as you mentioned, it was just so inexplicable that the Trump administration, proudly covered up the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and took almost no actions to hold individuals accountable. This was not an American citizen, but an American resident, someone who had come to the United States because he feared for his life if he stayed inside Saudi Arabia. And the idea that we would not deliver any consequences to the Saudis who pursued Jamal Khashoggi, an American resident, hunted him down and killed him, it weakens America in the eyes of the world. It invites other countries to do the same. So, yes, I would hope that in the wake of this report, when it's released, that we have a much broader set of accountability measures, whether those are financial sanctions or visa withdrawals for any individuals that have been found to have taken part in this murder.
Senator Murphy, Jen Psaki has just been at the briefing saying that the call from the president to the king will happen soon. Let's just listen to a minute.
Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just want to ask about the post office, a couple of questions. You said earlier today that there was concerns, I guess, with the leadership. Quote, it's clear that the leadership can do better. And so
What she said, and I believe it was Kristen Welker asking her the questions, our colleague, of course, that the call will happen soon, that it depends on the king's schedule. We do know, Senator, that his schedule may well have been altered because his son, the crown prince, had overnight had an appendectomy, surgery. So we believe that is in play, but as well that we're going to hear from this. We're going to hear from Avril Haines, the Director of National Intelligence, who, as you know, testified at her confirmation hearing that this will be declassified and will be released, contrary to the fact that Donald Trump persisted in defending MBS, in fact, praising him at the G20 in 2019 when he had been shunned by other world leaders and he then was welcomed back into the world community.
Well, of course, as you mentioned, Congress required the administration, then the Trump administration, to come to a finding as to who was responsible and a report to Congress. The Trump administration just ignored that law. And so what Joe Biden is doing is complying with statutes that bind him to make this report to Congress. And let me be clear, Andrea, I'm not calling for the United States to break away from our partnership with the Saudis. No, in fact, I think there are really important elements to our partnership. We have an important counterterrorism partnership. We need to work with the Saudis to try to wind down the war in Yemen. The Saudis and the Emiratis, the Bahrainis have been important in trying to achieve a détente between the Gulf nations and Israel. That's good for the United States. So there's all sorts of reasons to still have a relationship with the Saudis. It's just that, we need domestic reforms. We need them to open up some political space. We need them to stop targeting American citizens and residents, because if they don't, then there's no way to justify to the world why we would stay in the security business with a country that is doing, such damage to the human rights and civil rights of American citizens and residents.
Senator Chris Murphy, thank you so much. Really appreciate your being with us today.
Thank you.
And